I was getting ready for my beloved Mill's funeral. Suddenly, my cell phone rang loudly. Never come to the funeral home. Go back to your parents' home in the countryside now. What? I was puzzled, but I headed to my parents' house as I was told. Later, Tyson informed me about Marin, his despicable estranged sister. So, Mom's gone, huh? How much of the inheritance am I getting? It is unacceptable that she would try to prey on mother-in-law's inheritance. I made up my mind to fight against such a sister-in-law in order to defend my mother-in-law's honor. After a fierce verbal battle, that sister-in-law ended up behind cold, dark bars. I'm Sylvia, just an ordinary housewife, living a blissful life with my salaried husband, Tyson. Apparently, many women struggle with how to get along with their husband's family after marriage. Especially between the wife and Mill, there are often nasty squabbles. I was one of those with that messy impression. But fortunately, I have an unencumbered marriage in that side as well. Yes, I got along well with my husband's mother, Pamela. For instance, Sylvia, how do you like this cardigan? Thought it might suit you, so I knitted it. For me. Thank you. Lovely color, and mother-in-law, your knitting is so good. Glad you liked it. It's getting chilly, so take care of yourself. Yes. Oh, mother-in-law, would you teach me how to knit sometime? And that's how it went. Pamela's face always had a loving smile. I owed her a lot, and she even helped us out financially. I adored such a kind Mill, and considered her like a second mother. But then, Sylvia, Mom passed away in the hospital. I learned of Mill's passing just the other day. Shocked by her death, I couldn't eat for days. Yet, this was a reality to accept. Looking back, Pamela had terminal cancer for years and was on chemotherapy. Her battle must have been incredibly hard. Whenever I visited, Pamela greeted with a smile. She surely didn't want to worry us. For her, I couldn't stay teary-eyed. I decided to send her off with a smile. So, I was preparing to attend Mill's funeral at the family's home. Just then, ring, ring. My phone on the table was ringing. Curiously, it was the family home's number. Maybe Tyson, who went ahead for preparations, forgot something. I casually picked up the phone. But then, Sylvia, don't come to the funeral home. Go back to your parents' home in the countryside now. Tyson's frantic voice blares from the smartphone. What? You want me to go back to my parents' house? And why are you in such a panic? Sorry. There's been a little incident at the venue. I'll fill you in when we meet up. Naturally, I was baffled by Tyson's words. What could he possibly mean by trouble? Moreover, I'd never seen Tyson this shaken before. All right, just calm down. I'll head to my parents' place as you said. Take a cab. I'll be right there too. See ya. With that, Tyson hung up. Honestly, my head was full of questions. But if Tyson says so, there must be a good reason. And so, I quickly changed my destination from my in-laws to my parents' house. Sylvia, what's going on? Isn't today Pamela's funeral? Well, come on in. We'll talk inside. Seeing their daughter's sudden return, my parents were taken aback. When I explained the situation, they were just as puzzled as I had been earlier. Nevertheless, without Tyson, there's no way to really explain the situation. We all waited anxiously at my parents' home for Tyson to arrive. About an hour later, Tyson burst into the house. Sylvia, are you okay? I'm fine, but what happened to your hand? Looking down, Tyson's hand was wrapped in bandages. He touched his injured hand and looked gravely concerned. He then began to explain the whole ordeal that occurred at his parents' house. Actually, it turns out Tyson has an older sister named Marin. But this Marin has been quite the black sheep, causing her family endless headaches for years. Apparently, she's had run-ins with the law more times than one could count. Pamela never abandoned her daughter, continuously bowing her head in apology to those around her. She even took on the debt that her daughter had racked up. I promise I'll pay it back, okay? Please, Mom. Trusting in her daughter's words. However, Marin broke that promise and left home. She's been estranged from Tyson's family, and they hadn't heard from her in ages. Yet, Marin showed up at the funeral home. Expecting that she might have matured over the years, the first words out of Marin's mouth were, "So, Mom's gone, huh? How much of the inheritance am I getting?" Naturally, Tyson was livid. Was that really the first thing she was going to say after their mother passed? Tyson heatedly informed her that she'd been written out of the will long ago. Moreover, that in Pamela's eyes, the daughter was now Sylvia. That's me. What? Sylvia? Who's that? How can an outsider inherit when her own daughter can't? That's just nuts. Marin, upon learning this, was said to have turned beet-red with rage. She then apparently took my husband's phone and drove away from my in-law's house, spewing disturbing words about my husband and me. Tyson's hand injury. Turns out she bit him. I immediately locked my phone remotely, but she probably knows our home address and recognized your face from the photos. Oh my. I was at a loss for words. Learning about Pamela's daughter was new to me, and the fact that she was such a piece of work was a shocker. I'm sorry for keeping my sister a secret. It's a family matter on my end. Tyson looked deeply pained, bowing his head. We tried to comfort him and discussed how to handle the situation. Maybe it's best if you don't go back to that house for a while, just in case. Is this address safe? Yes, I haven't put this address in my phone. So, long story short, we decided to live at our family home in the countryside for safety. The next morning dawned. The sun rose, and we could hear the birds chirping. I'm heading to work now. If anything happens, call me on the backup phone. All right, take care. I waved goodbye with a smile as Tyson drove off to work. But deep down, I felt a cold wind of anxiety. What if Marin, my sister-in-law, showed up? What if she attacked me? I was plagued by these fears constantly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marin's face, remembering how she caused a scene at our family home. Yet, our days in the countryside passed peacefully. Days went by without any issue, and calm moments continued. The anxiety and tension that once troubled me gradually melted away, and now it seemed quite minor. I wished the whole ordeal with Marin would just fade away. I had become more optimistic. That's when things started to change. Excuse me, are Tyson and Sylvia here? That day, a police officer from the local station visited our family home. What can I help you with? I had a bad feeling about all this, and hesitated to ask again. But as the saying goes, bad feelings often prove to be right. As it turned out, someone had broken into our home. We got a call from a neighbor who saw it. I quickly informed Tyson, and we rushed back to our home. When we arrived, it was clear. Our home had been ransacked. Every drawer was open, as if a storm had passed through. Is anything missing? Well, with the police officer present, we checked our home. Our checkbook and other valuables seemed to be in order. However, some cash, around a few $100s, that we'd kept in a dresser was missing. By the way, according to local inquiries, neighbors claim they've seen a suspicious woman several times in the past few days. This woman was apparently shouting in front of our house, yelling things like "come out and pay me back." Tyson, do you think it's? Most likely. I'm pretty sure it's Marin. Tyson nodded as he looked into my eyes. We explained to the police about the recent altercation with my sister-in-law. The disruptions at my Mill's funeral, the stolen cell phone, and my husband Tyson's injured hand. The police response was relatively smooth. Probably because we had reported the cell phone issue to them in advance. After that, we were taken to the police station for further questioning, and only managed to return to our family home at dusk. The burglar was soon caught. It was indeed Marin. According to the police, after committing the crime, she audaciously stayed at a hotel nearby. She was reportedly caught while nonchalantly receiving a massage from room service. Of course, all those expenses were paid with the money she stole from our house. Although she admits to the crime itself, she denies the allegations of burglary. I'm not sure about the details, but it seems matters aren't so simple when it's an inside job. In any case, we were called to the police station once again. We were escorted by the officer and led inside a room. And there she was, a brunette woman, sitting on a chair with a disgruntled look. Suddenly, she exclaimed in anger, "Hey, Tyson, I can't believe you'd do this to your own family." Marin showed no signs of remorse. Actually, it seems she didn't even think she did anything wrong. I bet she maintained this attitude throughout the police interrogation. According to her, she didn't enter the house with the intent of burglary. She came to discuss her inheritance, but had no choice but to break a window to get in because we were not home after repeated visits. As for the stolen cash, she said it was just necessary for her to stay nearby. In other words, everything was our fault. Such impulsive, self-centered reasoning. To think such a dangerous person held a grudge against me. I shudder to think what would have happened if I had bumped into her when I was alone. The thought sends chills down my spine. Meanwhile, my husband Tyson and his sister were having a fierce argument. After all these years you show up and pull this stunt, and give me back my smartphone. Yeah, I'll return it. You locked it right away, so I couldn't use it much. Just like you. Besides, family is family, right? We cut ties with you a long time ago, including our mother. So, the inheritance isn't your concern. That's the thing. Why would that old lady leave money to someone else's daughter instead of her own? Don't you dare speak like that. Before I realized it, I had shouted out loud. I couldn't stand her disrespecting Pamela. Marin, glaring, replied with annoyance. You're that Sylvia woman, right? The one who supposedly snatched away my inheritance. I didn't snatch anything. I just what? With those words, Marin loomed over me. Embarrassingly, I was intimidated by her piercing gaze. The words I intended to say got stuck in the back of my throat. Seeing this, Marin snorted triumphantly, looking pleased. At that moment, the police officer present cleared his throat and intervened. All right, calm down, everyone. It seems there's a lot going on, so why don't you all discuss this matter amongst yourselves first? He probably judged it to be a family issue from our exchange. We can address the official complaint and other matters afterward. With that, he tried to calm the situation. Later on, we decided to have a formal meeting at Tyson's parents' home. In a tatami-floored guest room, my mother-in-law's relatives gather around a large table. Breaking the tense silence, Marin spoke first. If you divide the inheritance with me, I'll let bygones be bygones. You should thank your generous me. Marin's audacity was as evident as ever. Well, it's to be expected. A person who has not changed after more than a decade cannot possibly change in just a few days. Every time she opened her mouth, she repeated, "Give me the inheritance and drop the charges." Of course, we had no intention of entertaining her demands. I've told you countless times, sis, you've been disinherited so you can't get any of mom's estate. Well, after you guys get the inheritance, you can just give me my share in cash. That's just absurd. There's no way we're going along with such a foolish idea. Tyson says with frustration. I tried to calm my husband down, then turned to her and calmly asked, Marin, have you read all of Pamela's will? It mentions you as well. I don't care about anything but the inheritance part. I bet it's full of nasty remarks about me anyway. No, Pamela was really concerned about you. She even felt remorse. If that's the case, then she should have left me the money. As she spoke, Marin scoffed with a hint of irritation. I was boiling with anger. Yet at the same time, I was deeply saddened. She seemed to regard her parents, especially Pamela, as nothing more than convenient tools. I think the reason Pamela didn't leave you any property is because she realized money wouldn't change you. Without waiting for Marin's response, I continued. I can't give a single cent of Pamela's money to someone as despicable as you. You've got some nerve, especially coming from someone not even related by blood. I don't need lectures from someone who disrespects family ties. Confronted by me, Marin seemed taken aback for a moment. She then turned her eyes sharp and glared at me as if in a huff. It was an ugly, terrifying look. But this time, I couldn't look away. There's nothing more to discuss. Please leave. Saying that, I locked eyes with the domineering Marin for a moment. Eventually, whether out of rage or fear, Marin lunged across the table trying to grab me. Instantly, she was restrained by my husband and other family members present. 10 minutes later, she was forcibly dragged out by arriving police officers. She continued to swear the whole time, but by the time they put her in the police car, she was completely demoralized and had her shoulders slumped. Later on, I heard that Marin ended up in jail. Our report was officially accepted. Word had it that Marin had a significant debt from loan sharks. It probably explains why she was so obsessed with Pamela's inheritance. Regardless, she was doomed to a life unlikely to see the light of day again. It's like she never really knew her mother's love. She brought this upon herself. We were reflecting on the recent events in our long-neglected, now clean home. Lighting a candle in front of their Mills portrait, Tyson remarked, "I was surprised to see you confront her so boldly, Sylvia. When I read Mills' will, I knew. In fact, I had reread my mother-in-law's will the day before my discussion with my sister-in-law. Come to think of it, I never really had the time to give it a thorough look." The will was filled with Pamela's passionate sentiments, almost like a letter. Each and every word she penned down inspired me deeply. She always cared about her children. Not a word of resentment, just pure concern. And she bravely set forth, wishing for our happiness as a couple, as she departed for the heavens. She probably wanted to do a lot for her real daughter. I gripped the cardigan I was wearing, as if hugging it, tearing up as I remembered my mill. Just then, my husband, Tyson, tried to comfort me. "Sylvia, would you knit something for me too?" "Yes, sure. I'll show you some knitting techniques passed down directly from my mother-in-law." I smiled, wiping away the tears at the corner of my eyes. I intend to make good use of her inheritance. From then on, I made a solemn promise to live happily, also for Pamela's sake.